Greetings everyone. Shalom Ufuoma ERUDE is my name. I'm glad to welcome you once again into another series of our episode, Nigeria Unfiltered. Today we're coming from an unconventional platform to discuss a poem written and composed by me, and it's titled Unseen Horizon. I'm a poet, an academic, and an educationist. It bettered in me to discuss certain life pains and inward longing. It is born out of emotional and a desire for the better. The society we find ourselves in Nigeria is somewhat regrettable and unfortunate. A lot of things have happened in the past and in the now. Leaders have squandered and done things that citizens ought not to ever thought of, and it has happened to them. That said, every chronic optimist and those that have it in their mind, in their subconscious, to never ever give up, they always look out for something to survive, regardless of the circumstances and the environment. As the popular saying by Chinua Achebe, until the lion learns to tell his story, the hunter will keep taking the glory. These and more informed my judgment and the betting of the poem Unseen Horizon. Today I'll be doing the textual analysis. It's a quatrain. What is a quatrain? A quatrain is a 4-line poem. It has a standard rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme speaks to the rhyming of the last word in each line. A line is also known as a meter in poem. That said, a quatrain has basically more than 2 rhyme schemes. It's either it is an AABB, ABAB, and etc. etc. That said, this particular poem, Unseen Horizon, is taking the form of an AABB. That is, the last words, the first 2 lines have same vowel sound, and the last 2 lines have same vowel sound. That said, as a poet, we understand the fact that the environment shaping and guide our thought pattern. Our mood and our tune towards writing is influenced by our state of mind at the time. Unseen Horizon was bettered in a deep and thoughtful, provoked environment. That is something that says that there's something inside you that is yet to be unleashed and unraveled in society, despite the fact that certain factors, environmental factor, human factor, and what some people we call spiritual factor. That said, another factor is the fact that a lot of expectations, a lot of projection, a lot of planning and what of your mappings is yet to be achieved and realized. That is for another day. So today we want to be analyzing, as I've said earlier on, the poem Unseen Horizon. Now let's go straight to the structure of the poem. Of course, like I said, it's a quatrain, a 4-line poem, and it goes thus. If I could see, no limit would there be to all that I am and all I could be. But first, I must beat the evil in the sea, that shadow that ever tries to silence me. I repeat again. If I could see, no limit would there be to all that I am and all I could be. But first, I must beat the evil in the sea, that shadow that ever tries to silence me. Now, a quick look and a quick analysis on the poem itself. If you look at the first line, it ends with the vowel sound E, that is B. The last word there is B, and the second line also ends with B. So you have BB, that is AA. The third line ends with the word C, and the fourth line again ends with the word me. So it takes a form of AABB in a special and peculiar way. Aside that, we progress into the figures of speech. The dominant figure of speech of this quatrain is the metaphor. What is a metaphor? A metaphor is a direct comparison without the use of like and as. In other words, a metaphorical statement is a statement that seeks to compare someone directly without using like and as. The evil in the sea is metaphorical. The evil in the sea means a lot of things. Let's take, for example, the sea likely represents a vast, overwhelming, symbolic figure that is yet to be seen, a mental picture in the mind of our audience. Whenever they see this poem, it seems that the obstacle in that is the sea is something that is a structure, let's say a kind of monster, a masquerade, a fairy that is obstructing progress or progression. So that purpose-driven life he has pursued, of which in his or her lifetime. Aside that, if we go further, the evil could represent or symbolize fear, doubt, blindness. That literally or metaphorically, it means societal barriers. Like I said earlier on, there are certain factors that can limit a man. Environmental factors, relationship factors, physical factor, and what some pessimists we call the spiritual factor. That aside, the second figure of speech that we can look at or draw from this poem is the hyperbole. What is an hyperbole? Is an overstatement. An hyperbole is a direct exaggeration of things, saying things that is seen as an exaggeration. For example, saying that I can travel to heaven and come back just for love. That is an hyperbole. Now, in the course of this poem, the unseen horizon, there is no limit to what I would be. That is an hyperbole, is an exaggeration of things. It emphasizes how much potential the speaker believes they have if they can overcome the obstacle. In this case, it could be blindness, it could be darkness. And if all those things are removed, to the speaker, it can be everything and beyond. That is an hyperbole. No man can be everything. It takes a level of spiritual influence and interaction to achieve everything there is to be in this world. Another figure of speech that we can look is a conditional statement that can be likened to an irony or paradox. If I could see, is paradoxical in one angle. If I could see, can be ironical because it is attributing a blind person to someone that can see. So ironical in the sense that if I could see when you are blind, that is ironical. Paradoxical because it looks somewhat vague, somewhat ambiguous statement that seems to be unraveled with a deeper thought. So that speaks to the fact that it is conditional, ironical, or paradoxical. More to that, this set up a conditional reality. For example, what could be versus what is. In reality, someone is living a low life, is living a life of servitude and a squalor, whereas what would be is a futuristic statement, a statement that may not be because no one can actually claim ownership of the future. No one owns time. So that is more of a conditional statement. It's a clause attached to that. More so, it suggests longing and contradiction. It's unrealistic. The speaker knows their worth, but it's unreachable due to an unmet condition. It is, of course, a conditional statement when someone knows his or her value, but society is trying to tell him otherwise. That is the case we find in a country called Nigeria, where leaders are not giving the right policies, things are not working well. It has a political undertone. The unseen horizon, it speaks to the life of a common man. In the Hausa, they call it talakas, people that are suffering, people that are downtrodden, people that seem to have great potential but no one to pull them out of the river. That aside, another figure of speech that we can draw from this quatrain is a personification. It is implied. Evil in the sea implies that sea contains something living or conscious. Personification is the attribution of human quality to an inanimate object. The sea does not have human nature, have an animate being or what of you. So when you say evil in the sea, evil depicts living, evil depicts life. So you're not saying evil in the sea implies that sea contains something living or conscious, evil that must be confronted and beaten. This gives life to the obstacle. Now you're trying to create an imagery, a symbolic figure that is yet to be seen, a mental picture in the mind of our audience. But whenever they see this poem, it seems that the evil, it seems that the obstacle in that is the sea is something that is a structure, let's say a kind of monster, a kind of masquerade, a fairy that is obstructing progress or progression. So you say evil in the sea is personification. The fifth and the last figure of speech that is can be debugged from this poem, it is what we call the alliteration. The sea and the sea, the beat and the beat, evil, all these are repetition of the s sound. That is the sound of letter S. Why subtle? This adds to a sight rhythmic quality. So there's a figure of speech of alliteration there. The repetition of the s sound is a consonant sound, and alliteration is a repetition of consonant sound. So basically we have 5 figures of speech that we can draw from this poem. Unseen horizon, metaphor, it is a dominant figure, it is metaphorical. Evil in the sea, everything about this poem is metaphorical. It is hyperbole because there is no limit to what I would be. Of course, there are limits. Every man or mortal or living thing has an expiry date. No one can live without limit. No one can live to infinity. Another figure of speech, like in a summary, is the paradox or irony. It is conditional statement. Ironical because you are saying the opposite of what you mean. You are blind, you say, if I could see. It is paradoxical because it seems somewhat ambiguous, somewhat vague. Speaking to, if I could see a lot of things happening, it looks somewhat weird, but at deep thought, it makes something making sense to that. It is also having personification, the attributing of inanimate quality to an animate thing. So that's that. And the last one is alliteration. Now, the dominant theme here is vision. Vision, according to some school of thought, is a mental picture of the future. And of course, this particular definition captures this point. The poet is coming from an angle of future. Right now is not where it ought to be. But there is a statement of optimism. If I could see, there is no limit to what I could be or what I would be. So that is vision. Any man that falling short of vision lacks existence. Life, you either exist or you make sense. Existence is not just living. Existence without essence is what? Nothing. That aside, you don't impress, you express. Every man, a rational thinker, should not express but express. Expression is far more important than impression. You don't impress people, you express. You express your opinion, you express your thought without fear or prejudice. So that is what the dominant theme is all about, the theme of vision. Another theme is the theme of potential, of course. Everyone has potential. Potential is something abnormal, outside the box. It gives a drive, a desire to think outside the box. And the third theme from this poem is the theme of overcoming inner or outer darkness. We may not understand what awaits us. We may not understand the obstacle, known and unknown, physical and spiritual, as some scholars will think of that. Now, but all we can do is to control our environment and control our inner man. We always try to control ourselves by always thinking outside the box and having in a plan B an alternate to every decision we're making and everything we're doing. And aside that, we always think of the worst case scenario in order to jump out of every problem that we find ourselves. So we want the audience to come up with a mindset, to develop the mindset of doing things to overcome challenges. Of course, there are challenges everywhere. The problem, like we have in Nigeria, the current economy is not friendly. Governmental policies are not people-centric. However, man must survive. Man must devise a means to escape from all these ulabaloo and pandemonium in the economic sector. That aside, the tone and mood of this poem is somewhat emotional. The poet is trying to evoke from inside the emotions, the zeal, the determination, the resilience, and the fighting spirit to never ever give up. And this poem is dedicated to all chronic optimists, those who have taken allegiance and pledged allegiance to the fact that, come what may, I will never ever give up. To this end, permit me to draw the curtain here. See you another time. I remain Shalom Ufuoma ERUDE, the author of the poem Unseen Horizon. I would like to hear your thoughts, your analysis, and your observation. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.